Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank you all for listening. Please subscribe and click on the like button. We're getting more viewers recently. I appreciate that very much. But today is probably, for me, the low point of the season. Jaden Ivey, today is Thursday. I'm recording this Thursday evening. He broke his fibula. It's the long, skinny bone that runs down the leg. There's the tibia and the fibula. The tibia is thicker, a fatter bone, and the fibula is the skinny one that runs down on the side where your little toe is. But he had surgery today, successful surgery today at Henry Ford Hospital, and they said that they will reevaluate him in 4 weeks. And so whatever that means, we know that when they say they're going to reevaluate him, that doesn't mean he will start playing in 4 weeks. That means that they will look at it and then they will go from there. So they claim they're going to update us and give us updates on his progress in his therapy, but Pistons recently haven't done that very well. But anyway, it's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching. It was a terrible injury. I was at the game. I went down to see the game Wednesday against Orlando. My granddaughter played at Little Caesars Arena on the floor, and she knocked down her first 4 threes. She shoots mostly from the NBA range, but she had like 24 points and made 6 out of 8 threes, and she's been on fire lately. But anyway, I was at that game, and it was so heartbreaking to see Ivy. He was in so much pain, and to see how everybody reacted, how heartbroken everybody was. But, this hurts our progress as a team and our development as a team. It has a lot of ramifications. What are we going to do about his extension? We thought we'd have the rest of the season. The organization could evaluate him and decide how much were they going to be willing to pay him. And he's been on fire lately. He has been on, and he's had a really good season. But, you got to make that big commitment. It's 5 years after this that they have to do that. But they don't have to do this summer. They can extend him. But they can wait and watch him play next season, and then he would be a restricted free agent. And so we could match any offer that he got. So most players don't resign, so you can do that. But most of the time, they want to reward the players. They don't want the players to feel like they want the player to feel like they're wanted. And so I was, it's going to be interesting to see, and we can talk more about that in a little bit. But yeah, we'll see what happens. The surgery that they say that usually for the fibula, it takes 3 to 6 weeks to heal. And the Pistons certainly are going to err on the side of caution, which they should with a young player like that. And we do have a chance to make the playoffs, and so 4 weeks gets us start. 4 weeks goes up until about March, and so we still have a month and a half of the season left, and then maybe possibly the playoffs, and we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that, I think, after tomorrow's game against Charlotte. So anyway, there's a lot of ramifications for this, about his injury, and like I said, about how much we extend him for, how much we offer him, and then there's obviously the effect on the rotation and how that's going to be impacted. Obviously, it's going to be a major impact on how we rotate the players, and so we'll see. But yeah, we can start talking about that. Who's going to start? That's the first question. And so there's Beasley, he had a terrible game last night. We're going to talk about the Orlando game in a minute, but he was terrible last night, and he's had an amazing season. He was 0 for 7 and 0 for 4 on threes, and he had 5 turnovers, 4 turnovers. But he had his worst game probably of the season. But he could still start. But obviously they do like him coming off the bench, and he's been so thrived in that role of coming off the bench and scoring points. And he's played, a lot of minutes, so they don't have to start him necessarily. But then if it's not Beasley, is it Asar? And I've been a big proponent of starting Asar, but I was going to start him over Hardaway or Tobias, but he had a terrible game last night. I mean, by his standards and what I expect of him, I mean, he didn't shoot well. He turned it over way too much, but I think he still could fill in and play that guard and be that secondary ball handler. He didn't do it good last night, but he he has the potential to do that, and I think he is. If we're going to be good, we have to have him turn out to be a great player, and I certainly think he has the potential. And obviously, the other choice is Sasser, because the problem is, then if you were to bring Sasser off the bench and when you take Cade out and pair him with Beasley, then you're going to be really small, and so that would be hard. But Sasser, has shown some promise this year and played pretty well. And then Holland, but I've been pretty pleased with how JB's played Holland this year, even when he wasn't playing great earlier in the year. But like last night, with even Ivey sitting out the last 10 minutes, Holland only played 10 minutes last night. But anyway, I really want to talk about the impact on this team. And, you got to see at the game, Asar is sitting on the bench, and he has tears. He has tears in his eyes. And I love Asar because he is a compassionate person, but he's also passionate about basketball, but he cares about his team and his teammates. And he, the whole team, you could tell how heartbroken the whole team was and how they were standing all around him. Cade was instantly right over top of him when the injury occurred. And Duran came out and took his warm-up off and tried to cover it up so, people couldn't see. Because, some people said Cole Anthony did it on purpose and he should be suspended. But I watched it. He just was going for the ball and Anthony crashed into him. And then there was some tape of Anthony. On the TV broadcast, I went back and watched that, and it looked like he was laughing, but he had a smile on his face. Somebody was trying to comfort him. That he had tears in his eyes. Cole Anthony did. So, and he made a game winner for them just recently. They came from way far behind. So this Orlando team they played, they lost their two all-stars, and they've been actually winning games. But anyway, JB I think really said it well. He said that how no one's a better person, teammate than J.I. No one cares more about this thing than him. And I've continually said that. I know there's not so many Ivy haters recently, but there's been a lot, even at the beginning of this year. And then he had that little slump for about 2 weeks before he got injured. And but he has been on fire lately since he's came back. He cares. He puts in, and JB, everybody that's been around him since we drafted him say that he's the hardest worker and he's in the gym the most. And if you listen to him talk, he cares. And I've said it. Sometimes it's almost a detriment to him that he cares so much that he's an emotional kid, high strung a little bit, I think, and it sometimes hurts him, but still overwhelmingly I think it helps him that he cares so much and he puts so much work and effort into it. He's a very religious young man, and he cares deeply about his family and his teammates. You can watch him on the sideline, and when he's not in the game, even when he's having a bad game and he's not getting to play and he gets kind of benched even over the last couple years, he is up there cheering. He is the most excited person for every one of his teammates, and it was really disappointing and hard to see him. And you could just tell how much the players all cared about him. And JB was tearing up after the game, the press conference. He had he held his act together pretty well, but you could see that he was very emotional and how much he cared about it. So anyway, so he's had a great season. He's shot really well this year. He's averaged 18 points a game and shot 46% and 41% on threes and 5 assists a game. That is awesome. But the last 5 games since he came back from the injury, averaging 19 points a game, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, shooting 60% from the floor and 62% on threes. And how crushing is it? He goes into this game, he's having as good a game as he's ever had in his lifetime. He's 8 for 11 from the floor, 5 for 6 on threes. I mean, it was just, and they weren't just easy threes. He wasn't just shooting wide open looks. He was shooting off the dribble. He was shooting quick, and he was on fire. He did turn it over too much, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But he has been having a fantastic year, and he's been on fire. And so for this to happen, it's just, as much as he cares, it just is heartbreaking and gut-wrenching for all of us, I think. And so talk a little bit more about the extension. So here's the thing. So they can give him like 5 years, and Cade's got the max. I thought that he would probably get a little bit less than the max, and I know Jalen Green negotiated a recent rookie extension that was less than 5 years, but we certainly hope that we keep him. But it was going to be fascinating to see what they were going to offer him or what he was going to accept before the injury. But, obviously I was confident that we would have a really good picture of what we would want to pay him after this season was over. And now we're not going to get to really see that. But his recent trajectory was just up. And so we just got to wait and see what happens there. So, before we start talking about the Orlando game, I just want to mention, Cade in the voting for All-Star he's number 6. And it's unfortunate. So here's how the All-Star players, it used to be a popularity contest with the fans. So they would pick guys that were even washed up superstars that were famous, big names. And even if they were injured the whole year, they were still getting voted to start the All-Star game. So they changed it. So now 50%, because they want it to be the fans' game, 50% of the vote for being an All-Star is the fans' vote. 25% is by the players. And the players sometimes don't vote very smart. In the past, I've witnessed. And 25% is by a panel of the media. So we needed to vote for Cade. And the guys that are ahead of him are LaMelo. And I contend that LaMelo is a fabulous talent, and he can be fun to watch, but he's not a winning player. He takes terrible shots. He's been on fire this year, though, but he's number 1. But he's among people who vote, which is a lot of young people. He is their player. Fans have loved LaMelo, and even though his team doesn't win, he gets way too many fouls called on him. He's injured a lot, so I thought maybe he would get kind of out of the picture a little bit because he wasn't going to get to play enough games. But we're going to get to see him tomorrow night, Friday night. So he's number 1 by a significant margin over Donovan Mitchell, who obviously is going to make it because his team's got the best record in the NBA by quite a bit, and he's been having a great year. Damian Lillard is, they won the Bucks won the in-season tournament, the NBA Cup, and he's been playing really well, and he's got huge name recognition in a lot of respect. Jalen Brunson, because he plays for the Knicks, and he's an awesome player. And so it gets really hard. And then Trae Young, his numbers are the worst that they've been almost any year. His shooting percentage is terrible, but he's getting a lot of assists. He's leading the NBA in assists, and so he's number 5. So that puts Cade, it's great to, you look at all those guys are deserving, but Cade is 6. A lot of people I mentioned last episode that Bill Simmons thinks that Cade is going to make the All-Star team and deserves to make the All-Star team. So anyway, we just need to vote because there's a lot of good guards. There's a lot of good guards even after him, after 6. But we got to hope that we can boost him up there and get him past some of those other players. And then in the fan voting, and then, hopefully the coaches and the media will give him some love and vote him in. So anyway, we'll talk about the game, last night's game. I'm sitting there. We should have blown them out. We had so many opportunities. I think we were up by 10 at the end of the first quarter, but we had wide open fast breaks. It looked like we were going to get an easy bucket, and then we turned it over, and it just happened repeatedly. And the big culprits are a lot of my favorite players who I think are the future of our team and who have been our best players this year. Cade had 5 turnovers. And Cade was on fire last night. Ivey had 5 turnovers, and he didn't even play the last 10 minutes. And Beasley, like I had mentioned, had 4 turnovers. And my guy, Asar, had 5 turnovers. And 5 turnovers for as much as he handled the ball and played is way too many. So he even had balls knocked out of bounds, and off his hands, he just didn't catch it. We had a time when Cade threw a ball down to Duren. They probably gave the turnover to Cade, but it went right off Duren's hands. It looked like he was going to get an easy bucket, but we had lots of great scoring opportunities that looked like we were going to get, and then like I said, we just turned it over. So we're up with 6 minutes halfway through the third quarter. We are up by 18 points. And then we just went cold and started turning the ball over. We had, it's amazing that we won this game, but we shot, they shot terrible. So they're down. Banchero's not playing, and he's an all-star level player. Franz Wagner's had arguably an all-star game this year, worthy season this year, until he got injured. And so they both weren't playing, and Mo Wagner wasn't playing, and he is a good important role player for them. But they shot terrible, and we still barely won. So they shot 40% from the floor. We shot 52. They shot 23% on threes. We shot 41. We out-rebounded them 49-33, but we had 23 turnovers, and they had 12. So that was what allowed them to stay in the game. Sadly, Cade was having this monster game, but with 6 minutes left in the third quarter, we're up by 18. He has 17 points and 9 assists. The rest of the game, he had 2 points and 1 assist. So that's not good. But anyway, it was a big win for us, and it's nice that we came back in the emotional, Ivey went down with 10 minutes left, and then, he was 8 for 11 and 5 for 6 on threes, and he just was having a terrific game. Hardaway, just like that game, I forget now where we were playing Miami, where we won in overtime, and Hardaway hit the 3 threes in a row. That game, he was having a bad game until he hit those 3 threes. Tonight, he was 4 for 11. I swear that he made all 4 shots down the stretch, and he took some bad shots. He was 0 for 4 on threes, so he was 4 for 5 on free throws. So that was a good thing. But he was our best scorer down the stretch in this game, even though he only shot 4 for 11 for the game. Harris had a great game, one of his best games of the year for sure. 7 for 9, 2 for 4 on threes, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 17 points. Our guy Duren, again, we have a lot of Duren haters, but 9 for 10. And you can say they're all dunks, and I think they were, but not everybody can get dunks. Isaiah Stewart can't hardly get dunks, and he's a good player, but, it takes a talented player to be able to catch those lobs and hammer them down and be in position and work that right, and he's real good at that. 11 rebounds, and he had a steal and a block and 18 points, so he was an important part of the win. And like I said, Beasley was 0 for 7, 0 for 4 on threes, and 4 turnovers, and we still won. So that's pretty amazing. It's so interesting how from game to game, and that's the good thing about this team is we do have a team where Hardaway and Harris can have a bad game, and then Beasley and Cade'S Ivey can have great games, and we have enough better players this year where we can overcome somebody having a bad game. Cade's had some bad shooting games where we still won because we've have enough other guys that are able to score and play good. So I do like the way that this team has depth. So missing Ivey, we still have a lot of good players. That's going to hurt us. He's our second leading scorer. He's one of our best three-point shooters, and he's been guarding tough players. He's been working hard on defense. But we have depth that, like I said, Holland played 10 minutes tonight. And my guy, my wild card in this all is Wendell Moore Jr. Wendell Moore Jr. has played incredibly well. Every time he only gets in trash time, garbage time for a little bit of minutes, but he rebounds, he gets steals, he makes shots, he does everything well, and then he doesn't get to play, and so we'll see how much JB uses him because Sasser, is more apt to because Sasser's been in the pecking order ahead of him, but he would be interesting to see what happens with Wendell Moore Jr. So Asar was only 3 for 9 tonight, 0 for 2 on threes. And 0 for 2 on free throws and 5 rebounds. And he had 5 steals, but he had 5 turnovers. So that was, one of his worst games, I felt like, even though I love him. And I think that I want him to play a lot. I wouldn't mind if he starts. So Stu didn't have a great game. He was 2 for 5, and he did have 8 rebounds and 7 points. Holland, like I said, only played 10 minutes. So one cool thing, when they started to take him off on the stretcher, everybody started chanting IV, IV. But late in the game, the other team's, Orlando's at the free throw line, and what do they start chanting? Jared Golf, and he missed the first free throw when they were chanting that. So that was an interesting thing to me. But yeah, it was a good win, and now we got to turn around and tomorrow, Friday, we got to play Charlotte at home, and then we get to play the Timberwolves. You know, and they've been a Jekyll Hyde team this year. They got lots of talent, but they haven't really put it together. So it'll be interesting. We didn't practice today. You don't usually practice if there's only one day off in between games. But then how the team comes together and rallies together without Ivy in it. But so anyway, nice win for the Pistons. They've already exceeded last year's win total, and let's pray for Jaden Ivey. And I want to thank every one of you for listening. I appreciate all of you. Be the reason that somebody feels cared for and loved, and go Pistons.